All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another photo critique. This is for photo assignment number 2, double take. I'm Toby.
And I'm Christina.
And I'm a little blown away by some of the submissions this week, and just the fact that the number of people who did submit, because I know this is really kind of a targeted assignment. So real quick recap for those who just want to watch this and haven't been paying attention. This was to take a scene that maybe touristy or interesting, that you would just kind of step up to and be like, oh, a picture place, and take a picture. But really, to then think about what within this scene, what within this picture place is an interesting and powerful, would you say, powerful subject, Christina?
Yeah, powerful is the right word.
Yep. Or has some impact to it. And we had Terry's example we've been using on the blog here, which I think is great. Here's this big scene, lots of interesting little things down here, which some people could argue you could focus in on those two. There's certainly multiple things that could be focused in on, but the point is to really pick something as your subject. And there it is. So with that said, let's just dive right in. And what we're going to do with each of these is folks have submitted the scene and then a focused in smaller piece of that scene. And we're starting here with Rose on the VA grounds in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And this is a neat image using repeating lines very nicely. And Rose, I don't know if you planned this or not, but you've picked some of the lines where the tree is further back than on the others, so you really get a sense of this long receding space. Colors are great here, exposure is great. Now let's look at what you picked to really focus in on. All right, so I like this. This is really nice. You got low to the ground, and you really focused on the flag right here. I think the only thing that I would suggest is a little bit less intersection of flag and gravestone here. Shifting to the right a little bit would allow you to still keep this as your focus, but not have it dead centered, and give you more of a path down this row here, which would give you the uninterrupted grave markers or memorial stones.
I feel like it's the pole is dead center, but the flag itself is off to the side just a little bit in a way that just feels like, makes the left of the picture feel like a little bit too much like empty space or dead space.
Yeah.
So I would just turn, yeah, I mean, same idea, turn to the right, or not turn, but just move to the right just a little bit to get that in more focus. But I like what you did. I think that this is probably the best, subject to highlight out of this scene. And for the previous picture, there's also, I noticed a little bit of dead space at the bottom. I do like the repeating lines. The light in both of these pictures is really, really beautiful. Just really nice. Just great natural conditions. And I would have liked to maybe see it horizontally, that first photo. And yeah, just to see more of those rows.
Okay, good. Thank you, Rose. Nicely done. Next, we've got Jade. I can't remember if we've tried pronouncing his name or not before. We've got this fairly simple black and white with a porch light, it looks, and some really nice repeating. I think this works really well as a black and white with just our repeating patterns giving this light. And I think the exposure is pretty good. It maybe could be a touch brighter.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's feeling a little dark for me.
It's feeling a little dark because I'm guessing that this is white and it looks a little more gray in this black and white. So it could be a little bit lighter. Let's look at what you decided to focus in on. All right, so you've come right underneath the light. And similar to Rose's, I think this is, really interesting, or the most interesting piece that you could focus in on in the most interesting way. Basically, directly underneath, and we have the very geometric, the nice lines, and the lines above spreading, and the aperture you chose. Yeah, I'm not sure what mode you were shooting in here because we don't have that information, but the 55, 250, f5.6. Oh, you could. The aperture you chose, I think, is great because these are just a little bit soft, but still there enough that they give a pattern. I see Lauren's commenting you're not cropping properly. I think she is thinking that you should have made this perfectly spaced
That's
evenly.
what I was going to say.
And that was your comment, Christina?
Yeah, I was going to say just make sure that all the lines, the repeating lines, are straight and not crooked.
Yep. So if you're going to go for this kind of look, go 100% and not slightly off kilter.
Yeah, and it's not totally off, off center or dead centered. It feels a little bit not, what's the word? It does not feel, not properly cropped. It just doesn't feel intentional.
Yes. Yeah. Planned. Yep. Okay.
Right.
Good. Thank you, Cheryl. And we've got this kind of front entrance to the Nam Hua Tea Parlor, New York City. And this is kind of a neat scene. I like the colors and textures and the very worn and kind of city-tired look up there and on these stones. And let's see what you chose to focus in on. You got right in on one of the window panels. Let's go back for a second. So we're looking at this window panel right there, which is, I think, the most interesting. It's got the name, the logo, and it's got the little cat and the bamboo bits in the window.
So this is, I think, a great example of if you were shooting editorially for a magazine that was going to do a piece on this particular restaurant, I would, it's dim sum too, I'm so jealous. They would probably want a wide shot, and a close-up shot to choose from, a horizontal and a vertical. It doesn't matter, you should give them a couple of options, just to make sure that they're able to fit it in with their layout. But yeah, this would be a great way to just, or two great photos to show them if you're submitting work for a piece of this type. So I think it's a really good example. And I like that it's not totally perfect, that the cropping is not totally perfect. Like you can see things over here and up here. But it sort of adds to kind of all the chaos and, the urban feel of the photo. So I feel like it works really well. So keep going back the wrong way. And I even like this. I mean, it's a little, I may straighten it just a touch.
Yeah,
but
I would straighten it. It's that's definitely an opinion of mine, is that it should be straightened up a little bit. It's bothering me that we got a little bit of this triangle headed off in that direction there. That is a little bright too. It catches my eye. But
it's great. And so that way, so I like that this assignment sort of created this particular example because, if you were a photojournalist shooting for a magazine or a newspaper or something like that, these are, two of the images that you should probably aim to come back with to present to people or to your editor. So this is great.
Good,
it's very
great.
cool.
And I just noticed that there's a little bit of a reflection here too in the window, which always be on the lookout for that in a way of adding more interesting content to your pictures. It certainly gives the whole feeling of being in Chinatown by knowing that straight across the street is some sign that's in Chinese. Good, thanks. All right, we have Mark's here, the PNC Park in Pittsburgh with the skyline in the background. And now let's, I thought one of the things we could do that'd be fun, we're not going to do it, but we could do the door explorer option. And what do you all think is Mark's subject in this picture? Now, we've run through these quickly, and there is what he has picked to zoom in on. And if we go back one, some of you might say, wait a second, is that in the picture? It certainly is. It's back there. And I think you could argue that, that in some ways that's outside the bounds of the assignment. But I'm totally fine with it because I think it's a good example and worth talking about.
I disagree with that.
That it's outside the bounds of the assignment?
Yeah, because he's clearly in the... It's not even that it's outside the bounds of the assignment. It's just that, to me, this scene is showcasing a baseball game, and I would probably try to close in on something pertaining to the game, because it just feels kind of random.
That's what I'm saying too.
Right, but you... Okay, that's fine.
Yep.
Well, yeah, so I feel like the theme should be consistent with what you're trying to showcase here. If you did want to just do the skyline and showcase the building, then I would have just shifted my camera up and not included any of the stadium itself.
Yep.
Because I think, although, I mean, I think that including the stadium, it's just, there's too much stadium for me to feel like the follow-up image should be one of a building, if that makes sense. I feel like if there was a little bit of stadium to kind of say, oh, this is Pittsburgh.
You know what? I just read his little description here, and he said that these were from his trip last year, and this was one that didn't make the cut because he thought it lacks a clear subject. So he's on the same page we are.
Oh.
Yeah. I will say a couple quick things about this picture is F-16, great. Everything is in focus. I think it's a neat image. I'm getting a nice sense of the Pittsburgh downtown, which I have not been to in a long time. And it looks like a cool place with this cool bridge here and the stadium right on the water. I know it's three rivers.
I really like it.
But, okay. I think we're done talking about this. We're all in agreement that it does lack a clear subject. It's got a neat skyline, but it's got a big piece of a baseball stadium. And let's now look back at this real quick. So that's that building right there. And that's awesome. This is a really cool shot. I think the color, the exposure, the geometricness of this building, it's great. Mm-hmm. I love it. I think this is a real cloud up here, maybe just creeping in, probably not any post-processing you did. I may take that out because it looks a little funny, and just filled it in with more sky, so it's kind of just standard blue. But I really like the shot.
Yep.
Good. Nothing to add. And I know you just added one more where you cropped in, and I think Christina and I are in agreement as we ran through these real briefly earlier. Too much. This is not as strong as this. This is strong. This is too much. Good. Thanks so much, Mark. Great shots. All right, we got one from Eric. Oil pump jack that he passes by on his way to work. My first question is it still working? I'm just curious, and I wonder where you are, Eric. Pennsylvania? Texas? That's the only places I know that use. Anyway, so here's the main picture. This is a cool, I think your exposure here is great. I think you could have been shooting at a slightly wider aperture to soften the background a little bit. It looks like just about everything is in focus, and really, obviously the subject is this guy. Let's look at what you focused in on now more closely. Close-up detail of the pump jack.
This isn't black and white. Go back.
But it is now. So I wonder where that piece is. I'm looking somewhere here. That thing? I don't think it's that thing. I don't think it's that thing. Let's go forward again. Let's go back one more time. I think it's something around here. So, let's talk about this image.
Well, this image I feel like isn't particularly strong to me because it's, again, going back to that other image, it just doesn't feel super intentional. It does showcase a smaller part of this huge structure, so it does help tell a little bit more of a story. But I would have liked to see it shot either dead center, like you stand right in front of that wheel and shoot it straight so that everything is symmetrical, or as symmetrical as can be, or try to frame it a little bit more to the left so that it doesn't feel like it's just slightly off center unintentionally. There's also
just touching, just like brushing against this.
Yeah. There's also a triangle, a distracting triangle on the top right. So you could have gotten in a tiny bit closer or just shifted your perspective a little bit to the right so that that wouldn't show up in the photo.
Yep. I think the exposure here is nice. I think the detail is great. I almost feel like this might be too close, too focused in on from your other picture.
I would agree. I would agree because you can't really tell what this is based on just this. If you had gotten closer, am I going forward or back?
Back.
If you had gotten closer and to capture this part or this part or the pulleys or something like that, I feel like we would have had a better idea of what it is. Or maybe just like gotten right below this and shut it up against the sky, something like that. Because we can't really tell what that wheel is. We can't even see it here. And if we were looking at it alone, just by itself, we wouldn't really know where it's from. So, something to keep in mind.
Good. Great. I agree. Thank you, Eric. Eduardo has got a good gun, and check this out. This has been, first thing I think of is Superman. Superman's been here and made a little knot in the barrel of the gun. So let's look at what Eduardo chose to focus in on. The knot in the gun. Mm-hmm. And, well, you know, I don't want to say I feel bad for Eric because I don't think we were mean, but, you know, I feel like you could make that argument that we made just against Eric's picture just now of not really knowing, getting a sense of the scene as much from some of these other images as well. And this one would be one of them, but at the same time, this is a strong and interesting, more interesting image on its own.
Yeah. Based on content, I mean, I think that the main focus, the most interesting thing about this particular tank or gun or whatever is that part. So it is relevant. We'd still probably, if we only were to see, can you go back to that other? Yeah. If we were to see just this without having any context to it, we probably wouldn't know what it's attached to, but we would still find that you know, bent metal like that is really interesting.
Okay.
So
good.
it's more relevant. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Let's real quick on critique of this. I feel like it needs a little bit more breathing room.
It does.
It's just right up against the edge. Give it a little bit more space, and
I like that this fills the frame the way it does.
Yeah.
I think it works.
I think that's what I was going to say too. I was going to say maybe a tiny bit more room, but we're really just soft. I think this is great. You framed this really nicely.
Yeah.
And actually kind of frames itself the way it comes in and the angle it goes up at, but you chose a portrait orientation for that and it works really nicely. Maybe a touch brighter, a little bit brighter exposure.
Yeah, just so it matches the other photo, because the other photo looks a lot brighter. You can see that it's very light-ish green.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eduardo. Simi has the Upper Falls, Southbury, Connecticut. Pretty picture. Kind of pictures that I would like to take. This is an exposure of 0.3 of a second. Getting some nice flow here. And then let's look at what Simi chose to focus in on.
I love that. I think that's really, really great. It's a really pretty abstract photo, and you know, what I like about this is that you can't tell if it's a really small part of the fall or if it's like a really big fall. And I find that really cool. So, yeah, and I go back to the larger photo. So I actually love the second photo better than this, even though these are beautiful falls and this is very interesting, all very interesting looking. I think I would have tilted the camera up a little bit more because there's too much foreground. I would have liked to see more of the top.
Agree. We're so close to almost having the top that, again, it's kind of that thing that doesn't seem quite as deliberate.
Yeah.
So yeah, get just a little bit more room up there. And also, I don't know, you're at f/18, so probably had a good amount of light. But if you could go just a slightly slower shutter speed to smooth this out in here just a tiny bit more, I would like it. But I agree. This is a wonderful shot. And it is exposed perfectly, and black and white works just so nicely with it. It's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Thank you, Simi. David's got this beach grand tail. I think this is another cool. Hey, we've got a lot of black and whites.
Yeah, we do. That's funny.
Good number of black and whites in this thing. And we zoom in, and we've got some person smiling there. Let's go back one real quick. There they are. A little hide and seek. Now, I don't, this is another one where I think we might argue that it isn't technically the assignment.
Right. Yeah.
Because if you walked up to a scene, I think it's clear. I don't think I need to explain. But it's just, somebody's playing hide and seek, and then a much tighter shot. So let's talk about this shot for a second. Well, first, let's say this about this one. I think this is nice. I think it's exposed nicely. I think it works well as a black and white here. There's a lot of texture in the rocks. Some people might say we got a lot of big dead sky up there.
No.
But I think it's fine. And I wouldn't want more beach instead. So it could be a little tighter in there. But that's good. And then this, I feel the same about the exposure and the look. But a person's head just down here in this corner with this little triangle, I'm not so sure about.
Yeah, I don't think it was what we intended or the outcome that we intended as the result of the assignment. But it definitely adds a lot of humor. So
it's cute and it's funny.
It. Yeah.
And she's got a nice smile.
Yeah, it's a nice shot.
If you had wanted to take a picture of somebody at this spot in this framing, where would you have put them?
I think I would have had them standing. Go back to the other one. Standing somewhere on the sand just to get a sense of scale of the place itself. And then I would have just created a portrait with maybe the rocks in the background just slightly out of focus. It just adds like texture in the back.
Yeah. While watching for intersections.
Right.
With heads.
So just framing
body parts.
nicely.
Yep.
Right.
Good. Okay. That's good. Thank you, David. Giuseppe. It's got a northern Italy landscape. A little dark. We got beautiful clouds back there. Well, let's look at what. Got a little bird up there too, and maybe another little bird there. But let's look at what you focused in on. Okay. So these clouds are beautiful. The way they're catching light is very gorgeous, very nice. Another bird. And we got this apartment building here too as well.
Yeah.
So let's go back real quick.
So I think the clouds more than anything are the focus, and then building I think is used for scale based on the comment on the photo.
Yeah.
Which I think is great. I mean, the clouds are so much more. What's the correct word? The more powerful in this photo than they are on the previous photo. You can see them and they're pretty, but.
What we're shooting now, we're up at 62. Did you crop too, or just in 22 there? No, maybe just to zoom in. Yeah, I think you could.
Cool.
I'm almost gonna say you could frame it a little tighter. I'm not sure that's true, but I think you could bring it down a little bit. So there's a little bit more green and a little bit less of this up here.
No, I think the composition is good. I like it.
Okay. But that cloud is wonderful, and I like that it kind of feels like it has a dividing line right here.
It does.
My mind is thinking glacier, and this is all under the water, and this is above the water. Do you know that? Something like 90% of a glacier is below the water.
Yep.
You heard that?
I had heard that.
Let's say, thank you, Giuseppe. Nice image. Again, still,
Thanks,
a little dark down here. Brighten out a little bit.
Yes, I would do that, I think. I would brighten a little bit.
Roy's got these pretty flowers. We have these growing around here as well. And then let's look at what you focused in on.
Great.
Nice.
I think, I like the wide shot of the flowers because there's a lot more of them. I may have wanted to see something like a little bit wider even, just to show. I'm only saying that because I think the shot is really great.
This one here.
Yeah.
I like it a lot too.
It doesn't feel super white, but I guess that's fine. Yeah, I think this is a great shot.
I think the exposure here is nice. The depth of field selected is very nice. And I'm just looking, I'm trying to figure out which flower we have focused in on.
Yeah.
Is it this? No, it's facing...
might be that one.
Oops. It's facing left.
You could have
done a little...
You could have flipped it, or...
Could have flipped it, or we just could be slightly different angle, which is going to make it change. I think this is a very powerful image, too. The only issue with this is this guy right here haunting in the background. It's not necessarily a bad thing to have other flowers, but it's just bright enough that it keeps catching my eye. But I love this. I may have moved this just to the right, just a little bit, and left a lot of empty space over here because it's facing that way so nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So we're saying both are equally strong in this case?
Yeah. I like them.
Yep. They're good. Nice.
It's a good example.
We're done.
That's it.
That was it. Thank you so much for everybody who participated in this photo assignment. We'll be announcing a new one very soon. Suggestions down below. I like the ones that really do make you all think. Because I've thought about, like, do one that's spring or green or, but ones where you really have to step up to a scene and think about what you're trying to capture. And so that's the kind of assignments. If you got suggestions along those lines, let me know. But we will be coming up with something, if you all don't suggest anything we like, soon. So look for that.
Yeah. And I think that the last few assignments we've come up with kind of on the spot while doing other critiques. So maybe that's just how it'll be. How the next one will come up.
We just have to wait for you to have a epiphany.
An epiphany.
Epiphany.
Yeah.
All right. So cross your fingers for more epiphanies from Christina. Real quick before we go, I just wanted to highlight last week's image critique. We critiqued Anna here. Well, not Anna. Anna's dad, I think. MJ, who had taken this picture, and we had some comments. This pole we thought was distracting. Just a little bit of edge here catches the eye. And also just kind of the tone of the image was a little muted, and a little bit of green is casting up on the side of Anna's head from the grass. That's something I think is hard to notice at first, but it's amazing how much color can be thrown from different objects. Well, anyway, shortly after that critique went up, MJ responded and had done a little bit of editing and said, I took what you said and produced a second image. That's sweet. I love it.
Yep.
I love the fact that they took time, and we get to see the image here, and I think this is a really nice, strong image.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's great. There's nothing that truly takes my eye away to either, edge of the photo away from the photograph. My eye stays pretty much with the baby in the focus. So, yeah, I think it's awesome that you did this. And just because I think it, definitely shows a stronger image. So, yeah, thank you for doing that. Thanks for taking the time to do that and to share it with us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching. And if you haven't, take a moment and subscribe. Even if you know how to find us through Facebook, a subscription on YouTube always helps. And we appreciate you watching and appreciate your comments.
Thanks.
Thank you.